This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, Heather Ho, there's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe birthday boy. And the birthday boy for today, the 21st. 20th, pardon, is was a former NFL quarterback who actually wasn't really much of a quarterback. And then for some strange reason, with Oakland back in the late 90s, early 2000s, he pulled off a stunning move and all that. Anyway, he played for New England, Minnesota, Washington, Kansas City, and Oakland. So he was a journeyman, if you will. He became a sports broadcaster and was part of the NFL on CBS for 16 seasons, which is pretty impressive. But anyway, he is Rich Gannon. So Rich Gannon was a quarterback who went to the University of Delaware, which is like weird. Delaware was not in the main IA or FBS, if you will, by schools. They're usually in the FCS or IAA, as I still call it. He was a punter first, and then he became a quarterback when he was a sophomore and set many Delaware records. Now, a lot of those records, I believe, were subsequently broken by one Joe Flacco. So anyway, he played 3 years for Delaware and went to the 87 NFL draft. In the draft, he was actually picked by the Patriots. It was weird how he got to the 4th round, 98th overall. So Rich Gannon was the quarterback. Now, quarterbacks taken before Mr. Gannon were Vinny Testaverde, who Tampa took first, Kelly Stouffer, who the St. Louis Cardinals, when they were in St. Louis, took 6th, which is like, what? Kelly Stouffer? He was a bust. Atlanta took Chris Miller 13th. Jim Harbaugh was taken 26th by the Bears. Cody Carlson was taken 64th by Houston. And then Mark Vlasic was taken by the Chargers, 88th. So Rich Gannon was like, down there. But the Patriots actually had a plan. They wanted to convert him to be a running back, defensive back, or wide receiver. They figured he had his numbers there. But Gannon said no, and the Pats said, okay, then you're traded to Minnesota. So he goes to Minnesota. He was the backup to Wade Wilson and actually played 4 games in his rookie season. Gannon actually played in the wildcard game for the Vikings when they got in to face New Orleans at the Superdome, and it was a 44-10 crushing defeat of the Saints. The Vikings would actually beat the Niners in San Francisco, which was shocking because the Niners were 13-2 and looked good. They ended up losing on a 4th down play that failed against the Washington who's. Gannon was dumped to 3rd string for 88 behind Wade Wilson and Tommy Kramer. But Tommy Kramer was a Minnesota institution. Anyway, Gannon did play 3 games. And played well. I mean, Gannon didn't even play in the 89 season. While he was used in the divisional round against the Niners, which they were crushed 41-13, but he was 13 for 18 with 144 yards and a pick. Gannon got the starting job for Minnesota after week 4 because of Wade Wilson's thumb ligament injury. Gannon made 12 starts for the Vikings and all that. He threw for 16 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. So, okay, that's fine. And then Gannon was demoted in the 91 preseason to 3rd string behind Sean Salisbury Steak. Wilson was replaced by Gannon against the Broncos in week 5. Gannon would actually become the starter for the last 11 games of 1991 for an overall 88 season. 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. So Gannon became the Vikings starting quarterback in '92, fighting Sean Salisbury for the job. No Wade Wilson. Gannon would do everything. Dennis Green shockingly benched Gannon in favor of Salisbury after a win over the Browns, which was shocking. Minnesota then decided to trade Gannon to Washington for a fifth-round pick. Gannon became the third stringer behind Mark Ruppin and shock of shocks, Kerry Conklin? Who the hell is that guy? Jeez. But Gannon did play late in the year, like at being a starter and all that. He would throw 3 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He was pathetic as a starter. Gannon would have shoulder surgery and would sign with Kansas City. He would serve the backup to Steve Bono. And then there was a controversy in the '97 playoffs because Gannon helped the Chiefs do well in the absence of Elvis Grbac. But Schottenheimer decided to go with Grbac, and the Chiefs lost them to the Broncos 14-10. And, Grbac and Gannon, it was like, who would against City? Gannon would become a free agent and sign with Oakland. And he thrived in the West Coast offense and actually shockingly was voted to the Pro Bowl 4 straight years. It was like, this guy who couldn't make it work in Minnesota, who couldn't make it work in Washington, or Kansas City for that matter, is now throwing for touchdowns as an Oakland Raider and getting to the Super Bowl? Wow. And the shocking fact was that, he was the MVP of the 2002 season after doing so well. 4,600 plus yards for 26 touchdowns, helping the Raiders get to Super Bowl 37. He actually would have had more passing yards than any quarterback in history. He had the pace going, but he fell off the pace. But he still got 418 completions. Unfortunately, the Super Bowl would be the start of the end for Gannon, as he threw not 1, not 2, but 5 interceptions. 3 were pick sixes in a 48-21 loss. The only problem with the Raiders was that it wasn't all Gannon's fault. The fact of the matter is that the Raiders never changed their playbook after John Gruden was released for Bill Callahan. So Gruden, as a member of the Bucs, and somehow got to the Super Bowl against the Raiders, knew about Gannon's mannerisms and knew about the playbook. It's like, why didn't the Raiders change their playbook? Anyway, the 2003 season was a disaster for Gannon. He got hurt after a 2-5 start, and then a neck injury ended his career. Anyway, when Kerry Collins was signed by the Raiders, it was just shocking. But Gannon kept his job and all that. But yeah, the neck injury just ruined his career, and that was the end of it. Gannon would win 76 games as a starting quarterback. He played 157 of them. He threw for 28,743 yards, 180 touchdowns, and 104 interceptions. So he almost got to 30,000. He would have got to 30,000 if he was healthy. So yeah, he won the MVP in 2002, which was shocking. I didn't think they would do that. But yeah, he was the passing yards leader in 2002 in the NFL, passing touchdowns leader in 2001 for the AFC. So he became an analyst for CBS after retiring. It was amazing what he could do. So he, alongside Kevin Harlan, would do games. Gannon was let go February 2021 as an analyst for CBS, but he's still on Monday morning quarterback on the CBS Sports Network. So anyway, Gannon and his wife have 2 daughters. Unfortunately, one daughter has celiac disease, and that's not really the best thing in the world because celiac disease is very harsh. But anyway, Rich Gannon wasn't a harsh quarterback. I mean, the start of his career was harsh, and then he came out of freaking nowhere for the Raiders and won an MVP. So There's a happy ending after all. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.